The argument that Kamala Harris and her supporters made is that Donald Trump is unstable, unhinged, and unchecked because of the immunity. That message was used after the many of his former, his chief of staff in particular, said that he was a fascist, that he was dangerous, that he was a threat to national security. And the voters today have returned him to office with a mandate, despite those judgments of people who have 4 stars on their shoulders and worked closely with him for several years.
It's not even despite sometimes. It's without,
in spite of. Or
without any consideration in a deliberate decision to ignore it. One thing we have to acknowledge, I believe, as reporters, is that on the campaign trail, so many voters do not care about how Trump's behavior and conduct are characterized by his critics or those who believe they are guardrails for American democracy. They are sharply dismissive when the points are raised by journalists and by others. This is a fact I have encountered constantly as a reporter. Dismissive. And when you bring up all these different data points about character, conduct, and about how presidential norms have been established for over 2 centuries in American political life, there's a pushback against that kind of assertion about norms, constitution, a constitutional system, and even the rule of law. What we have to also, I think, acknowledge as reporters is we are entering a new moment in America that is volatile, where you do not have an acceptance, broadly speaking, of how the rule of law is defined in the United States and how the Constitution is defined.
How broad is this mandate, which he is now claiming? Because think of some of the things he said openly during the end of this campaign about military tribunals for his congressional critics, about stripping licenses from broadcasters, about, at some point, deporting millions of people in short order. Can he put that all beneath the umbrella of, I've got a mandate, I said this aloud before you went to vote?
And is that the kind of radical change that his supporters think is necessary?
Yeah.
Yes.
Potentially.
We should point out we've heard nothing from the vice president. Her campaign had supporters sent home, what was it, around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this morning. We've had no word from the White House as to whether President Biden has been informed, whether he's been up watching, whether he will speak to the world about this later today. The only thing on his schedule right now is a security briefing in the 2 o'clock hour that we expect will still be held, but we'll see if he decides to speak, and then when, if at all, the vice president will speak to supporters, and what even is the protocol? Does she go first and then him? Does he have to go first and then her? We'll see in the coming hours. And so far, nobody at the White House has responded to questions about whether there's going to be a change in the schedule today.
And all this can be traced back to that fateful summer day in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, when he's sitting there with his family and a few key advisors, and he decides to exit the presidential race in the summer. Stunning. And now we end up here with his vice president losing to the one person he detests politically more than anyone.
And I would take this all the way back to late May. Remember, it was Joe Biden who said, let's debate. Right? They rolled the dice.
Yes.
2 debates. He accepted, Trump did. Biden
But it was a
up,
devastatingly embarrassing debate.
Absolutely.
For the president of the United States.
This all traces back to that
massive
May
miscalculation.
What a great historical counterfactual. Imagine if Biden doesn't do that debate. Is he still the nominee?
But Trump supporters would say that proved what Donald Trump had been telling them, which was that Joe Biden wasn't up to it, that he was too old for it. Without realizing the irony of now we have elected the oldest president of the United States in this moment. You know, one thing that is, as we talk about the projection into the world, one thing that was scheduled, has been scheduled for some time, was the testing tonight of an unarmed ICBM test launch in the Pacific. By the United States as a show of force to say, don't mess with us. We're going through a political transition. We still have the most fearsome fighting force, most lethal fighting force in the world. We are at a state of readiness. But now we're going to have to see what these remaining few weeks and months of the Biden administration will look like. This is not an insignificant transition. This is a world already in a period looking at a rising China in a way that is not just militarily threatening, but in the American infrastructure, as we continue to learn that with these disclosures, through reporting, by the way, that major telecom companies have been breached, that Chinese-linked hackers are within the infrastructure of telecom and possibly able to access audio of phone calls. I mean, we have had major significant security breaches in ways that haven't really been focused on because we've been focused on the election. These are the things that are going to land on Donald Trump's desk. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with Vladimir Putin?
Including reports that the Chinese targeted and attempted hacks into Donald Trump's phone,
yes,
J.D. Vance's phone, and additional officials. I asked the vice president whether she had been targeted. She would not answer that question to me.